Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. 2 Iraqis came here to this country, were radicalized, and they were the masterminds behind the Bowling Green massacre. I mean, most people don't know that because it didn't get covered. Go buy Ivanka's stuff is what I would tell you. I hate shopping. I'm gonna go get some on myself today. It's a wonderful line. I own some of it. I'm gonna give a free commercial here. Go buy it today, everybody. You can find it online.
That makes no sense. Last month, the Justice Department warned the White House that General Flynn had misled them, and that as a result, he was vulnerable to blackmail. And at that moment, he still had the complete trust of the president?
Matt, I'm telling you what the president has said, which is that he's accepted General Flynn's resignation, and he wishes him well, and that we're moving on.
After a month of watching Kellyanne Conway ride the struggle bus through the series of interviews with the political press, some in the media have finally decided to just let her off. On Wednesday, MSNBC's own Mika Brzezinski declared on air that Morning Joe is now a Kellyanne-free zone.
She books herself on these shows. We know for a fact she tries to book herself on this show. I won't do it because I don't believe in fake news or information that is not true. And that is every time I've ever seen her on television, something's askew, off, or incorrect.
Ouch. Well, that comes after CNN banned Conway from its Sunday morning talk show just a few weeks ago. They are among the first in the media to give a decisive answer to the question of how to handle the spokespeople for Donald Trump, who seem to share his tendency to not tell the truth. Which raises another question. Will they be the last to draw the line when it comes to lies? And which of the Trump mouthpieces will be the next to cross it? Joining me now are MSNBC political analyst Joan Walsh, Yashar Ali, contributor for New York Magazine and the Daily Beast, and Democratic strategist Karine Jean-Pierre. Thank you very much. And I should welcome the enemies of the people, I suppose. Now I should call the press. And Joan, you do have this thing happening where Kellyanne Conway not only goes out and says things that aren't true, but that are often contradicted by Donald Trump. Right. So are people being unfair by banning her, or is it the case that she doesn't necessarily seem to know what Donald Trump is thinking or speak for him truly?
Can both things be true? Because I think to some extent both things are true. I think she's been hung out to dry. Yep. We had several instances in the last couple of weeks where she said something, General Flynn has his full confidence, and an hour later Spicer says, right, we're examining it. There was a second incident like that I'm forgetting what it was. But so it does seem like she's losing the factional war. And so therefore she is a less reliable mouthpiece or source. And yet Reince Priebus gets on TV and lies all the time. I mean, all of their spokespeople lie all the time. To some extent, Mike Pence is, he's the vice president, but he lies too. So I do think that there's an element of sexism right now. I do. I hate to say it. Yeah. But where she's just, she's really being savaged, and she's being depicted as crazy. In a way that I don't think is entirely fair.
Well, I mean, that happened on Saturday Night Live, right? She was sort of lampooned as sort of an insane person. But, I mean, Joan makes a good point, Yashar, because whatever is said from the podium that Sean Spicer is saying, and he is the official spokesperson of the administration, you also have to take with a huge grain of salt, because within hours that might turn out not to be true.
That's right. And, the fact of the matter is that the press secretary of the White House is really the press secretary of the United States of America, because he's not only speaking to us, he's speaking to the world on behalf of the President of the United States. I cannot imagine being in a position working for somebody that you cannot say to the public, the president misspoke, or this was a mistake and he regrets it. Ever. That puts them in a terrible position. That's why there's going to be so much turnover in this administration.
Well, it's interesting, and Karine, so what you have here, let's go through some of the patterns that we're seeing in the way that the White House deals with the media. One of them is just to declare every news media outlet that doesn't give them positive and glowing and sort of suck-up type coverage just to be fake. Donald Trump tweeted this week, the fake news, all caps, media, New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, CNN, is not my enemy. It's the enemy of the American people. That is not funny. That's actually kind of chilling, Karine.
Right. No, that's exactly right. I mean, look, Joy, every bully needs an enemy, right? And Donald Trump, let's be clear, he is the bully in chief. But with what you just read, Joy, it is beyond the pale. It is un-American what he just did by tweeting that. But the other thing too, I really wanna flag here is I think a lot of this is a smokescreen, right? Because he doesn't want to talk about the real issues, which is Russia, which is his relationship relationship with Russia, which is his people who work for him, their relationship with Russia. And so I want to be careful that we just don't get caught up too much about this, even though it's wrong and he's stepping over the line, but that we really kind of continue to zero in, as the media has been doing, on Russia and the relationship with Russia that he has and his people have.
I think that's true, and I think we do, and I think it's very important that we not take our eye off the main story, Joan, but at the same time, while it's a distraction, it's also a tactic to get his supporters to focus on hating us, on hating the media in a way that is at the moment benign, but that eventually actually could be, threatening. I mean, you had the Pizzagate situation where somebody showed up with a gun to try to enforce one of Donald Trump's conspiracy theories. I want to play Donald Trump using the media essentially as a rallying cry to get his supporters animated. This is him just doing this in Melbourne, Florida. Take a listen.
I also want to speak to you without the filter of the fake news. The dishonest media, which has published one false story after another with no sources, even though they pretend they have them, they make them up in many cases. Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, and Abraham Lincoln, and many of our greatest presidents fought with the media and called them out, oftentimes on their lies.
So I don't know who told him that. I mean, he must have gotten that. Maybe he's had a briefing with Steve Bannon to come up with this idea that Jefferson, Jackson, and Lincoln were doing what he's doing. But what he's doing there is a particular performance that is designed to whip up a crowd against the media.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to give Fox News credit today. Chris Wallace confronted Reince Priebus, and Reince Priebus will not back down from this notion of enemy. Will never back down from anything Trump says. And Chris Wallace shoots back. President Obama whined about us, but he never called us the enemy of the people. So it also, Corinne's right. He needs every bully needs an enemy. He doesn't have Hillary Clinton anymore. He really
he has her at his rally.
Well, but I mean, he really got away with so much during the campaign because the media would go on one of his stories for a couple of days, and then there'd be email, or she was mean to us, or she fainted, and then his story would be like on page 6. And so he now has to create this narrative, and also hopefully for him a distraction, and so we're it.
And on the subject of distraction, Yashar, you do see emerging a pattern, and it's a pattern that a lot of people are noticing. Maggie Haberman has tweeted about this. A lot of people have written about it. I think, Joan, you've written and tweeted about this. I know you have, Yashar. And Business Insider focused on it, about this pattern that emerged in the way that the White House actually handles its real plans, the things that it says it's going to do.
Yes.
And this was because of the AP story that said that there was this 11-page draft memo that said they were going to use the National Guard to round up undocumented immigrants. And the pattern is this: wait for a draft memo of the proposal to be leaked to the press. Part 2, refuse to comment when asked about the draft. Part 3, wait for the disputed stories wait to dispute the story's accuracy once the story is actually published. And then 4, accuse the press of never having sought to comment in the first place.
And forget about refuse to comment, not responding to emails. That's what people don't know at home. They don't reply to emails. If I text a White House staffer to gossip, you better believe they respond instantly. But when I email about policy matters, sometimes things that may actually make them look good politically, it's not my intention, but that's what may end up. They don't reply. One New York Times reporter that I spoke to, a prominent reporter, said that she rarely gets replies to her emails. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I thought is it just me? But no, this is the way that they handle the media, is they just don't respond.
And Karine, is that a way of getting a story out there in order to test the response from the media? Is it a way of floating a policy? We know that White Houses have leaked ideas before to float them and see how the public reacts. Or is it just a way to set the press up to once again be bashed as, quote, fake news?
I feel like it's the latter, most definitely, because that's what they like to do. It's the narrative of fake news, and the funny thing is they're the ones putting out the fake news and the fake stories, as we saw with the voting fraud and so many other things. But back to the policy for a second, there was a story about the National Security Council staffer who didn't know what policies the president really wants to do. So what does he do? The staffer reads the president's tweets and then tries to figure out where what is the policy that the president wants around national security. I mean, this is what's happening in the White House. It's just chaotic. We have seen a White House in its first month that has not only been chaotic, but has been incompetent, the most incompetent, disastrous White House that we have seen in American politics.
And you know, it shares, and I'll come to you on this, Yashar, because I think we talk about this a lot offline. It shares with a lot of authoritarian governments this mix of incompetence, malevolence, but also making its supporters, you know, more and more devoted and more in the belief that the only real news is the news that comes from the leader. And John McCain had some thoughts about this demonization of the press. This is what he said to Chuck Todd about that on Meet the Press Daily.
We need a free press. We must have it. It's vital. If you want to preserve, I'm very serious now, if you want to preserve democracy as we know it, you have to have a free and many times adversarial press. And without it, I'm afraid that we would lose so much of our individual liberties over time. That's how dictators get started.
And Yashar, you know, one of the ways that dictators operate, that autocrats operate, is telling you that what you see is not real, that you don't see it. Donald Trump tweeting out Saturday night, "Don't believe the mainstream media, fake news media. The White House is running very well. I inherited a mess and I'm in the process of fixing it." The White House is running very well, and demonstrably your eyes tell you it's not, but the regime tells you it is.
Yeah, and text messages from his staffers. Sorry, Mr. President. You know, your own staff is ratting out on you all the time. And the fact of the matter is, here's what's egregious about this. Not only is he calling the press the enemy, he's doing a wholesale indictment of the press. I wouldn't accept it if he mentioned the White House press corps. It wouldn't be okay. But he's also talking about reporters that are embedded with troops. He's talking about reporters that are in Mosul right now. He's talking about reporters that are in North Korea. And that's the sin to me, because those people are covering events, putting their lives at risk quite literally. And he's thrown them into the trash of the rest of the media, and that's not okay.
And also equating and saying that, you know, I will retweet Rush Limbaugh and say that Rush Limbaugh is equal to you, or bring the guy from Twinks for Trump. This is literally someone who's now in the White House briefing room, is the guy from Twinks for Trump, and he's saying this person and you are the same job.
You, Glenn Thrush, are sitting next to Twinks for Trump. I mean, I'm all for broadening the number of voices, you know, in the press gallery, but what they're doing is obviously seeding it with people who support them. When Sean Spicer goes to a local reporter, every once in a while there's been a good question.
I think it's great that they do that.
I like it, but then sometimes it's just, you know, you came to Cleveland for the convention, sir, not to pick on the Cleveland Reporter. It can be very parochial, and it's a way, he can almost guarantee that it's a way to stop getting questions about Russia, for example, and go to something that's completely unrelated. So there's a, you know, I love diversity, I love democracy, I love more voices, but they're using these voices in particular ways.
And, you know, Karine, to the point where you had Donald Trump literally say in his press conference, "I'm looking for a friendly reporter."
Yep. Yeah, I mean, he did, and he would comment on whichever reporter he would pick, if they were good or bad. I mean, this is completely insane. And to what the panelists were saying, a lot of the first couple of reporters he picked were conservative reporters, and so it is all about his own like how he feels, right? He's so thin-skinned. He's such a narcissist that he can't take any critique. He can't take any comments. And most presidents, right, in the past couple of presidents, have all complained about the press, but they do not disrespect them the way that Donald Trump has, and calls them fake news and calls them the enemies, and or the opposition. It's just unbelievable.
And I can tell you, no president likes the press. None of them.
No,
Obama didn't like us.
them.
None of them like the press, because the press is not there to be their stenographer or their public relations department. They all dislike the press, but they don't call the press the enemy. All right, Joan Walsh is going to be back later in the show. Thank you to Yashar Ali and Karine Jean-Pierre. Thank you guys.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.